Bienvenidos a Disrupt Everything, podcast series by Isra Garcia. Reinvéntate a ti mismo y cambia lo que más te importa.
Do you want to transform yourself? Do you have what it takes? Do you want to disrupt yourself? Do you think it has to do with technology? Or do you think it has to do with loving yourself, with surrendering, with forgiveness, with facing your fears? Today, here in Disrupt Everything podcast series, we have a special guest, as you guessed it, because it's in English. We have like a really pro on living life. We have Kamal Ravikant. Kamal, thank you for being here and welcome to Disrupt Everything podcast series.
Gracias, es un placer.
Well, you know that Kamal walked the whole Camino De Santiago and he learned pretty good Spanish, I must say. I'm gonna close the window because it causes so much noise. So we also on live on Instagram. You'll have the chance to hear and listen the interview with Camel Ravikant. And Kamal, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a special pleasure to be doing a podcast in Spain because of my association with Spain. You know, and it's been an important part of my personal history.
Thank you, and we will try to honor that. So now it's time for the intro, and then we go towards the interview and really go deep down to the rabbit hole.
Disrupt everything. Explora los márgenes o muere intentándolo.
We're here again. We're back. Now we have Camel Ravikant. Who is Camel Ravikant? Did I say it right? Ravikant?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean,
Okay.
You said it right. It's also a great question. It's a question I ask myself. Who am I?
And also, did I pronounce it well?
It's perfect.
Okay, sometimes
Perfect.
my rusty English goes
No,
really
es
bad.
más mejor de mi español.
Well, Kamal Ravikant has meditated with monks in the Himalayas, served as a U.S. Army infantry soldier, walked, as we mentioned before, 550 miles across Spain in Camino De Santiago, and co-founded several companies and a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. I like this one. He honestly doesn't know where he lives. Now he knows because he lives in San Francisco at the moment.
At the moment.
He's also being the only non-Black, non-woman member of the Black Woman Writers Group. And he has written 3 bestsellers. Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, Live Your Truth, and Rebirth. And I must say that 2 of them are translated into Spanish. Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, Ámate como si tu vida dependiera de ello, and Rebirth, Renacer. So you can get it. I can't wait to get my hands on both. Also, Kamal has held the hands of dying patients and also worked directly with some of the best people in Silicon Valley. He is, as far as I know, and I've seen, Kamal has been one of these persons I used to call vividores profesionales. So like really pro on life, you know, people that live life at its fullest, you know, at full swing. He trekked to one of the highest camps in the Himalayas. He has earned his U.S. Army infantry badge. He lived in Paris. He, you know, hung out with some of his favorite authors, and he's been doing the sense I have when I read and research about Kamal is that he didn't give any space to life to stop. He just pushed forward. So Kamal, with such an intense life,
Mm.
my first question to you is, if you were about to put your life into perspective and then um, like define or like highlight the milestones that you remember since you were a child to nowadays, and you were about to put it in a timeline, how this timeline would look like. So what will be
Wow,
that milestones and highlights?
that's an grande question, huh?
Good one to start.
It's one I could write books on. Wow. It's interesting. And I hope it's okay if I speak my broken Spanish, porque me gusta mucho practicar mi español.
It's more than
You
okay. As I
uh,
speak into my broken English.
let's see, because yo hablo español poquito porque yo aprender solo cuando yo viajar al Camino de Santiago por 800 kilómetros, necesito comer, necesito dormir, so entonces necesito aprender. Pero yo no hablo pasado y futuro, solo presente. Yo no sé
Okay.
pasado y futuro. Es like, después me voy a Latinoamérica, yo estaba en Dominican Republic, yo estaba en México, Argentina, um, and um, so I like speaking Spanish. It's a beautiful language. Um, pero yo sé la español de la calle. Like
This is
not
the one we
not a,
like. So
oh
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay, okay.
Thank you so much.
Um, No, thank you. It's an honor to be here because my book Renacer all takes place in Spain. It's a story of someone walking in. It's a novel of someone walking on the Camino de Santiago. Someone who does not want to be a pilgrim, but life sends him there, and what life teaches him because of being on the Camino de Santiago. Because anyone who knows the Camino de Santiago just knows how special that is. Just what is everyone who walks it has changed. So for your question about timeline, um, maybe I don't know about going, like say I was born, this, that, but I know looking back, like that was Camino de Santiago was a defining moment for me when I walked it. And it was many, many years ago. It was a long time ago. I was in my mid-20s. And, I remember I was in Barcelona. I was backpacking, and someone told me about it, and I read about it in a Paulo Coelho book, and I did not know if it still existed. But I got on a bus from Barcelona, I think, and went, I think, then to Pamplona, then to Roncesvalles. Then I found that other people walk it too. I had no idea it was a real thing. And next thing I knew, I was walking it. Next thing I knew, I was a month, 5 weeks later, I was in Santiago de Compostela in Galicia. That was a amazing experience. Like experiences like that, or when I was in the army, when I was in basic training, when I was 18 as a boy. What they make you go through in basic training to be, to graduate and earn the right to be a soldier. That defines you. That was one. The Camino de Santiago was one. I've had a few like that. Moving to Silicon Valley and learning to start companies, not through education, but just by jumping in and learning as I went along. One doesn't think of their life as like, it's interesting what listening to myself being described by you. I've never thought of myself as that way, as that charger. I just gotta go through with life. I think the only thing that makes me is that I'm very curious, and I don't mind taking risks. Um, sometimes I've done very, very stupid things, and I'm glad I'm still alive. That come being with their taking risks does that, but also it takes you to following a curiosity is, I think, one of our greatest strengths in life. Like it's led me to writing, to to studying writing, I became a huge Hemingway fan. And Hemingway is the one I studied. And Hemingway loved Spain, by the way, right? But so many of his books are about Spain. For whom, I don't know if you've read For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's about the Spanish Civil War.
No,
It
I
is,
haven't.
oh man, what a book. I remember when I read that, when I put it down, I could not believe a human being wrote that. I think it takes place in 24, 48 hours, and it's a beautiful story in a very difficult period in Spain's history, you
Yeah.
know? And, but it's a very real story. This is the kind of story that's, so let's see, going back to your question, when being in the army or walking the Camino de Santiago, or moving to Silicon Valley to start companies, to learn how to make, to just jump in and start tech companies. Those are three that I can think of. There's been some more, but it's harder to just give a timeline than it is to look back and see what the common thread is. And I think the common thread each time was taking a risk. Um, Going in the army at 18, I was in college for a year. I didn't need to go to the army to, like none of my friends were in the army. Like my family was never like go to the army, but it was something I was interested in. I wanted to have that experience. I wanted to serve my country. And, and, so I did that. And I look back and that was a great gift I gave to myself as an 18-year-old boy, because you carry that sense of self with you, that if you've been in the military, anyone who's been in the military, you've been challenged.
Yeah.
You've been, and so
Amen.
you carry the sense of self, and that sense of self would come in years later when I was backpacking around the world for 8 months with literally like I think $2,000 or $3,000 to my name. That's all I had. I had nothing else in my bank account, no job, nothing. And but he gave me that sense of I can do it. So I ended up in Himalayas and ended up climbing in the Himalayas with no gear, with shoes that were falling apart and pants that had holes in them, because I've been in the army, I had the experience of being uncomfortable, so it didn't bother me, you know. That for me it was fun, where it was not hard. And but I never went in the army expecting that would actually help me in my travels down later in my life, you know.
So what would you say is
Uh,
the most powerful thing you learned in the army?
I think the most powerful thing I learned was about myself, um, was was my own internal discipline. Like one of the reasons I went in the army was as an 18-year-old, I thought it would also give me discipline. And I learned that you can have a drill sergeant yelling at you 24 hours or whatever, but that's not where disciplines come from. Discipline will come from when you decide you want to be a certain way or you want to do something. And and that was big for me. It also gave me the fact that I am stronger than I thought I was. You don't know who you are at 18. You think you know everything, but you know nothing. You don't know yourself for sure. And what it showed me that I'm strong, and it gave me a sense that I went through every day of it, and it wasn't hell, but it was hard. But it showed me that I will I have the strength to do that. That was a big thing, to come out and know that you have that strength. And I graduated boot camp. I turned 19 in boot camp. Um, that was a gift. One thing I look at is, so many traditional societies and cultures, tribal societies, for example, they have rituals or rites of passage where a boy becomes a man. You have to go leave the tribe and earn something and come back, and it's like the hero's journey, and now you're a man. A modern American society doesn't have that. We have what you go to college, you study, you drink a lot of alcohol, you graduate, you go to a job, where, but there was none. And I think we miss out something in modern society um, for in
That
that.
ritual,
So
right?
in Sorry.
No, that ritual we missed.
Yeah, that ritual. Like, why do traditional societies have that? There's something wise there. And without realizing it, I gave myself that gift, and that was important.
And
Looking back, I didn't know I was doing that at 18. Looking back now, I gave myself that.
And how this leads to you to you backpacking, and it leads to the correlation between backpacking, creating tech companies in Silicon Valley, and then becoming a writer? Because as
There
far
is none. There is zero correlation. That's the funny thing. There is zero correlation. Backpacking, because how books affect us. The book that's affected me the most in my life is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. How do you say it in Espanol? Alchemista?
Alquimista, sí.
Alchemista es mi favorito libro. And I remember, and when I read that in college, it unlocked something inside me, this desire that I had, but it had been locked away, that it unlocked this desire to go see the world, go see the wonders of the world, you know? And so that's where the backpacking came from. And the backpacking, but after the backpacking, the writing came from some of the stories I had experienced in backpacking. I wanted to write them down. And then, so I started to write them down. And then when I finished, I started reading Hemingway, and I realized just how terrible my writing was. And so, I mean, it was terrible. I remember the first time I'd finished a draft of a novel, and I went to a bookstore and I picked up, this was Farewell to Arms by Hemingway. And that takes place in the First World War in Italy. And I've read the first paragraph, and I was in a bookstore and I started crying, because I realized I just spent 6 months writing a pile of garbage. And this is what real writing was, pure and clean and just crystal clear. And that's hard to write. It's harder to get anything simple than it is to get it complicated. Simplicity is a sophistication, as they say. And so then there was a journey of okay, I'm going to teach myself to be a better writer, a better writer, until I have the capability to do the stories I write justice. And so I started doing that, and then Silicon Valley was happening, so I moved out there because I needed money. I was broke, and also I was thinking about going to medical school, but Silicon Valley, there was an excitement there. There was we're creating something new, so I did that. And that led to building companies. But at the same time, I was actually writing and teaching myself writing at night and on weekends, so I could be a better writer.
How did you taught yourself to become a better writer?
When you care about something deeply, you will figure a way out. And for me, it was important. Books saved me when I was a child. Books were my refuge. So for me, stories are important, incredibly important. Stories change lives, or they give us an insight into lives outside of us that can give us hope or expand our knowledge of life. And so I just read Hemingway obsessively, and I started like reading the same books again and again, underlining and trying to figure out how he did the turn of a phrase and how a paragraph worked, how the plot moved, how the structure of a book, how it feels. And then I would write. And I would write a book, and I would send to a publisher, and I would get rejection letters. And then I would get depressed for a week or a month, and then I would just start all over again. I had to do it again every year. I did it for many years, and I got better and better and better. And I told myself,
would you say you deconstructed the Hemingway writing, and you learned from that also?
Yeah. Hemingway was my teacher. He's the master.
Great.
Really, I studied other writers too, because you evolve, right? Because I'm not Hemingway, I'm my own person, so I'll study him and others. But Hemingway was the one who was the shining beacon of what the craft of writing is. In every art there's talent, but talent will not get you to create something great over and over again. It's the craft. You have to learn what the craft is. It's like being a sculptor. You could have all the time in the world making a sculpture, but you could have all the time in the world. But if you haven't studied the craft of it, you will not create enough great sculptures over your lifetime.
And what would you say was the most useful thing you did or learned to learn the craft?
I read and I reread and I reread and I wrote. That's all it is. But you do it. and wrote, and then sent it out to get judged, and got judged and dealt with the judgment, and then got depressed, and then got, said, okay, I'm going to get better, and then did again and then again and again. And I remember telling myself that there I was, like, chasing publishers. I told myself one day I will get to the point where they will chase me. And I think I'm at that place in my life now, and it's nice to know that I did that. I was able to do that
because you earned, you deserve it. So victory is not calculated; it's just earned, right? And then you earn with the step by step, millimeter by millimeter.
Look, we can get lucky and get victory, but consistent victory is earned.
That's it.
That's
it. And so you before the interview we were chatting, and you were were saying about the 2 books that's been translated, and you said something now that I really resonate, and it's also resonates with Rebirth, which is the art of being the art of pilgrimage, right? So can you elaborate on this?
Sí, ¿cómo se dice? ¿Cómo se dice pilgrimage en español?
Peregrinación.
Peregrinación, peregrinación. Man, I love hearing Spanish. This
And you know that you
have to come.
You're welcome to Spain anytime. You're welcome.
I am coming to have paella with you, man.
To Valencia, you have a room here to stay also. So
it would be wonderful. It's funny. When I first was in Barcelona, I had no money. I was backpacking literally, but in a backpacker's hotel, spending like $5 a day. That was my budget. And years later, I went to Barcelona, and then I had money, and it was a very different experience. I was eating whatever I wanted, going wherever I wanted. But each it's interesting. It's so much fun and interesting to see a city with different eyes. Where one, you're a complete budget and you go to look at the restaurant outside, but for lunch and dinner, you just go get a piece of bread and some cheese, and that's your meal for the day, right? And then to go back, maybe, and it wasn't that long later, and then I was like, okay, what's the best restaurant I can go to? And enjoy that, to have that like, comparison. Yeah, it's beautiful. I would love to return to Spain. And now that I have written my books, and my books are in Spain, and one of my books, my novel, is about Spain. I would love to be in Valencia and eating paella.
You are most than welcome. You are invited, and let's look for a date. And you're most welcome to be even in, I live here near the beach, tranquil, like easy, relaxed. We go pretty good weather, pretty good atmosphere, music, cultural place. I think you'll have a wonderful time here. I'll make sure that. So
okay, done. So I'm sorry, I forgot your question. I just thinking about Spain.
I was asking about the rebirth. Can we all experience this? What's your personal story behind it, and how you link it with the art of pilgrimage?
Yeah, well, Rebirth, as I said, is the name of the novel, right? And the novel is based on my experience. But I walked the Camino de Santiago, but it's not the experience. I took the experience and I created a story out of it. And I think, to experience it, I have readers from all over who email me and say, should I go walk it? And I say, yes, go. It is a special, special thing. It's like, there's something very, some things I think in life you can't substitute. Like, I don't think you can substitute a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is a very, very special thing that you have to go there and do it and experience it and feel the earth with your feet for all those miles, and feel the steps of all those pilgrims before you who walked for so many centuries, I don't think, but what I wrote the novel was, but to absorb, to show the lessons from my experience. And the lessons from my experience came from the people I met, the Spanish people, the Peregrinos, who taught me about life, and there was such wisdom that I learned that I had to share it. So, that was the point of the book, was to share my lessons.
What was
And
the
all these lessons are human lessons. There is no there's a Roman poet I love. I heard Maya Angelou, who's an American poet, speak years ago, and she said, she quoted a Roman poet, from thousands of years ago, and she said that he said, "I am a human being, therefore nothing human is foreign to me." Meaning, like if you feel something and you're able to express that to me, I can feel it too because we're both human. Our scenery might be different. You might be in eating paella, and I may be eating a steak, but we both still feel. We feel the same things. The scenery is different, but we feel the same thing. It's the fundamental human experience that we have more in common than we don't.
would you
And
what was
okay.
the most impactful experience you lived doing the pilgrimage in
For
Santiago?
me, it was actually coming to terms with the death of my father and forgiving him because we had a very difficult relationship. And I I was walking it after he died,
Wow,
and
sorry.
I didn't no, thank you. It was a beautiful gift that I received, was able to walk it, and I didn't walk it looking for something with him. I walked it because I was in Barcelona, and um, I drank a lot of wine, and I thought this is a good idea. And next thing I know, I'm in a bus. I was just following life. But as I was walking it, life was guiding me on something deeper. And so that was the main thing I got out. And that's, and in many ways, what I said is about that. It's a journey to forgiveness. Because for the forgiveness and self-forgiveness, because that is also such a human thing. We all have to deal with it. It doesn't have to be with the Father. It can be with anything or ourselves, every human being. So that was the most important thing I got from the Camino de Santiago.
And then you've jumped in, like we talk in the bio in the introductions that the camps of Himalayas without with no gear. Well, how you get into that place, and what highlights can you rescue from there, from being there?
Well, actually, it's interesting. I've been in the Himalayas with no gear, and I've returned there with gear. Funny enough,
What
now
perspective
that I think
again?
about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, I was in the Himalayas last year in August. I was in Mustang Valley, which is way, way, way in the middle of nowhere. That they just opened up to outsiders. They weren't even open. You couldn't go there. And excuse me, it's near the border of Tibet. And I went to study with the Bon, who are the mystics of
This,
Tibetan Buddhism.
this is one of the questions I got, because when I saw that you were with a sect, I thought I thought, or I asked myself if it was the Bond tradition, but I will ask you later for that.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I don't believe in joining. I'm not a joiner. The army taught me also what an individual I am, how I like to think for myself. But I like to learn. I like to learn from others. I like to learn from experiences. Um, in the Himalayas, the first time with no money, it was more for the experience. It was more just like there's sometimes you got to climb a mountain just so you can see the sunrise from the top.
Like that, yeah.
Really. And that's my favorite memory, was watching sunrise over Darlagiri with with the clouds moving and the sun reflecting off the clouds, and the whole thing was glowing orange and yellow, and it was just nature and the crispness of the tops of the mountains, you know. But I had to climb for weeks to get to that point to see the sunrise,
You have to
you
earn
know.
it.
Well, sometimes you earn, sometimes and then there was these Japanese tourists who probably smarter, took a helicopter and got there and were watching the sunrise with me. Sometimes you just take a ride.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, both are equally valid.
You're in the James Altucher Show podcast.
Yeah, a few times.
In the podcast interview, you were talking about something that really grabbed my attention. You were talking about the untrained monkey and training the mind. Could you share, and as you were also talking about discipline and, being like determined person, can you share with us some techniques or practices do you use for yourself that find useful for training the mind and training the trained monkey?
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing we all share is the human mind. And the human mind, often we think it's us, but the human mind is just more often than that, uncontrolled, untrained monkey that's thinking all these thoughts, feeling all these feelings, repeating these patterns and loops that, if you pay attention, would just horrify us if we really realize what they do, what that's doing to us. So, um, that's basically what my book "Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It" is how I learned to. I was in a very bad place, and I did it more to try to just save myself. Was working my mind to start feeling love for myself, and that really changed everything. And it was doing basic things like using light and breath and feeling love in. And actually, it's interesting that we realize, if we pause, we realize that we have control of our thoughts. That thoughts don't have control over us. Now, that's not easy. It's simple to say, but it's not easy. But like anything, if you start working on it, it becomes easy. It becomes nature, a practical, practical. A lot of people do meditation to go away from thought. I've done that. My personal preference is actually, rather than go away from thought, I focus on, what do I want to think? What do I want to feel? And actually work on that. So it's hard to describe what I've spent an entire book outlining, because I wrote Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It to be a very practical book, to show that how this is a guy who wasn't loving himself, who was actually, basically hating himself at one point, and who within a month turned it around and was loving himself, and life was loving him back. Um, it's not like here's a, top 3 ways to love yourself, or
Yeah,
like the kind of
step by step
article.
guide.
Yeah. It's not that, man. It's more of an honest. Here's what I did, and here's how you can do it. So it's not easy to actually just describe it in a podcast that someone can walk away from. But like, one of the simplest things I did was, I actually started telling myself and making myself feel that in a regular way. I shared in the book how I did it. But it's literally, if someone could just walk away and start telling themselves that, look, your mind's only thinking one thing at a time. So even if you just start focusing on this other thing, it stops you from thinking the garbage. And you know what? It's a beautiful thing to think. And then you start feeling it. And when you start feeling it, you realize, oh my God, I create this. And then what else can I create inside? And you start feeling it. And what's interesting is, when you start feeling it, you start to notice, after a little while, that usually takes a couple of weeks or a week or two, you start noticing life returning that to you. I don't know how that works. I don't have all the answers, but I know that works.
And when this happens,
That's what surprised me the most.
fantastic.
Yeah, I call it magic. It's like life's magic.
And
Mhm.
you were saying that when if you pause, we have control over our thoughts. That's I did an experiment while I was traveling through Cambodia, Hong Kong, United States, and Cuba, and I did an experiment of 1 hour during 1 hour each day during 20 days, just total stillness, not moving at all, and it's like it's like being on psychedelics. It's just your mind.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
have so much control over your mind. It just grabbed my attention when you say it, because it's when you stop, and then you stop everything. When you stop your body, your body starts stopping your mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that, I wish we were taught when we were younger. It would have helped us in everything,
Yeah,
literally everything. And I don't, there's so many different modalities, so many different things to do. For me, it just comes down to, what can I do that will make me better? I care about practical. I've built companies. I care about what works. I don't care about theory. I don't care about what sounds good. You know, anyone can write what sounds good. Anyone can say love yourself. Great. How? Make it
yeah,
practical.
yeah. That's
Like, really, give me a step by step, right? Tell me exactly how.
the
That's all I
how is
care
the
about.
self mastery approach.
Yeah, don't inspire me. I don't care about inspiration. To change my life, show me how to do it.
And
And show me how to do it easy. That comes
love
again from Hemingway. Make it simple.
Love
You know?
yourself like your life depends on it. I love it. And why depends on it? What are the
Well,
foundations
when I
for
wrote
loving
it,
oneself?
when where I came from, I felt like my life did. I was in a bad place, and so I just started working on that to kind of get out of my mind. What I didn't realize, I was just doing it to just get out of my mind. What I didn't realize was how something that simple with something that powerful would change me. And if you think about it, the one thing that does change you is love. Like, and I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm not talking about needing the love of another. I'm just talking about the pure, simple feeling love for yourself. That changes you. And you'd be amazed how many people haven't taken the time to feel that in a consistent way. I hadn't, and I tell you, when I start working on it and I do, it changes you. It changes your approach to others. It changes your approach to life. Most importantly, your relationship with yourself. You make different choices. Or even just experience if you're alive. So why not feel that? And there is no one on this planet who's not deserving of feeling that for themselves, no matter what we've been through. If you want to be better, if you do that, you will be better.
And what are the foundations for, for loving oneself, applying it to everyday life? It's just what, what what's your thought and your take on this question?
I'm not sure I understand. If you
What
want to
what
expand on that.
Yeah, what are the foundations for loving yourself? So like feeling that love, like loving unconditionally, not, as you say, not on relationships, not on romantic love, just that pure love that sometimes we don't know how to address.
I mean, I honestly don't know the foundations. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm very clear in the book. I'm
From
not a
your experience,
psychologist.
yeah.
I'm just a guy who works on himself, and he found something really special that worked for him, and he's sharing how you can do it. So I don't even. The foundation is you're alive. The foundation is you were born. You were a baby. Everyone who's been near a baby knows that babies respond to love. Babies need love. We're human beings. We were once that baby, but that need for love doesn't go away. But what you don't realize is that the most important thing we can do, one of the most important things we can do, is give ourselves that love. And I've had people reach out to me and say, "But like, I believe in God. What about that?" I'm like, "Well, does God love you? Yes. Then who are you not to love yourself? If God loves you, why wouldn't you love yourself? Are you bigger than God? It's
Interesting.
I mean, think about it. And if you make that a foundation, if we have many different foundations of our lives, but I'm talking about the internal foundation. And it's something that takes work. I work on it every day. It's something that, because the mind is a monkey, and it starts in the mind and the heart. And the heart feels, the mind thinks, and you put those two together, and it's powerful. And you and well, but do it if for any reason anyone's thinking, this is why would I do it? It'll change your life, but it won't just even just change your life on the inside. It'll change your life on the outside. That's the most interesting thing I've found, is that as you start to do it, your life gets better. Each time I've done it, each time I've got into it, and when I stop doing it and my mind goes crazy, my life goes back to that way. So it's almost like rubber. You have to keep, some of it starts to go back because the mind has been conditioned for so many years. So, um, so it takes consistent work, but it's like telling someone, look, if you want to be 10% body fat, that takes work. You don't just wake up every day and eat whatever you want and end up in 10% body fat. If you want that, you have to make choices. You have to say, I will exercise, I will eat this, I will not eat that, or if I eat that, I won't eat it for another week. You have to make conscious choices. Same thing with internal stuff. If you want to be better on the inside, it has to be like, okay, every day I will do these things. I will work on my mind this way. And you work on it, and over time it gets easy, just like a muscle. You know, it gets easier. You start a weight today that's hard, but if you do it regularly, within a week, 2 weeks, it won't be hard anymore. As hard. Within a month, you'll be doing much more. Same thing with the mind.
Isn't
It's really plastic. It's like a muscle, man.
It's an interesting approach because when you usually hear people talking about love doesn't make the connection like heart and mind. And you were like, you are approaching loving yourself not just from the heart but just also from the mind. And this is when where I think in this integration you get results on things that you can apply in a daily basis, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I started with the mind, and then you can't leave the heart. And the heart is, and when I say heart, I mean feeling. You know, the mind is thinking, the heart is feeling, and
Mm.
you have to put those two together. That's where our power
Yes.
is. Human beings, we think we are rational creatures. We're really not. All the research, neuroscience shows that, like, often our decisions are made subconsciously, and then we just use a conscious mind to almost justify them. And the neurocortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, in evolution is the newest part of the brain. It's the least. It's the so most of the brain is actually running on a lower, at a different level. And part of the practice that I came up with was to work on the underlying layer. Not just the thoughts, but also like the subconscious layer, because that's where change starts to happen that we don't even realize, but then we start to see our actions and our thoughts are different. Um,
Is
and
any sorry?
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't remember where I was going. It's okay.
No, I was asking, is any technique or any like ritual you apply for working on your subconscious mind or
I
training that?
mean, it's all the stuff. It's all the stuff I do to love myself. I was doing it more as out of instinct and trying to see what made me feel better. And I went
Mm.
deeper and deeper, and I tried all these things, and I came up with a system. It was only later when I started looking into why. Because, look, I'm a curious person, and also, I've studied science. I have a degree in biology. One of my degrees is in biology, and so so I'm fascinated by neuroscience, and I saw the effect that it had on me. So I was curious why, right? So that's where techniques go. It's hard, you know, it's harder to like just give someone like a technique, say go like that, because that's one of the reasons why I wrote a book, because I get tired of like spending hours explaining to my friends how to do this. I was like, let
Sure.
me write the book so
And
that it
you got the
explains
whole money.
clearly,
Yeah.
right? Let me actually write a manual, which is what I did. I wrote a manual to love yourself and how to do it, step by step, because there are certain parts. Like, for example, I walk them through a particular exercise I do to forgive myself. Why forgive myself? Because if you're going to go love yourself, you need to let go of what you're carrying against yourself. That's step one. So there's an exercise I do, and I get emails from people all the time. My God, I did the exercise that freed me. It's amazing. You just let go of the weight, and so that's step one. Step two is actually, like making a vow, because I'm really a big believer in the power of commitment. When you make a vow to yourself to love yourself, it's a fundamental act. It's a very human, pure act that you decide, I'm going to do this for myself, that I deserve this. And even if you don't believe you deserve this, you write this down, because by the time you're done doing the practices, you will feel you deserve it because you're loving yourself. So like there's all these steps that I put in place that you wouldn't think apply to loving yourself, but they really do, because they clear away the baggage. And then you start. And then you start applying. And then it's literally there's nothing about meditate for an hour or this or that. It's like literally stuff that, there's one thing I do that's really simple. I call it 10 breaths. Okay. And it's walk with it throughout the day. And I do this all the time, where I will pause whatever I'm doing. And for 10 breaths, you're all breathing. So might as well, 10 breaths is what, 15 seconds, maybe? Like, let's say 10 long and deep breaths of maybe 20 seconds or a little longer. And what I do is with the in breath, I feel light coming in from above. For some reason, I find that light works really, really well. The concept of light, because light and I feel love come in. And I say to myself, I think to myself, I love myself, or think to myself, I am loved. But it has to be love. It can't be like or anything like that. Love is the most powerful thing. So I feel that love come in. And then when I breathe out whatever's inside. If they whatever thoughts come, I breathe them out. So feeling that
Mm.
love come in and breathing out whatever needs to go. That's simple. No judgment, but just feeling that love and letting go for
And
10
after
breaths.
and
That's it.
after and after all
But
this,
you,
sorry,
uh-huh.
no, go ahead.
Well, what you find is you start doing this, and all of a sudden it shifts you. It will just get you out of wherever you are. But you have to
Mm.
make this a practice. This is one of the things in the book, is the 10 breaths. It and it's one of the little exercises. Like, by the way, you can do this too. But it really works. But all these things require doing it, doing it consistently. And what I found with the 10 breath exercise, very interesting, is if you start doing it, after a little while, you realize, you will notice that when you breathe out, naturally, you will start thinking gratitude. You'll start thinking thank you. It's like breathing in love, breathing out gratitude. It's a beautiful cycle, and you're not forcing anything.
And
In the
feels good.
beginning, it might feel like forcing. So go ahead, force it, because it's your mind resisting. It's the mind that's got you where you are, you know. So, um, the mind resists anything new. It's because the mind is a survival mechanism. It's not, to make it good for growth. You have to go beyond what is comfortable. And but that simple exercise, 10 breaths, is a beautiful exercise. Anyone can do anywhere. I would say if you're going to do it, make yourself a commitment. You'll do it 10 times a day. You're breathing anyway. And 10 times a day, spread out over the day. Spread out over the day is nothing in your time. You can do it in the bathroom. You can do it in the shower. You can do it whatever. You can do it while someone's talking to you. You're bored. In your head. No one can see your head, right? Just do it. You will find an interesting shift inside you.
Thank you for sharing. And after all this time, like working yourself, what would you say for from your own experience have discovered about self-love and loving oneself? What's the thing that say, okay, I think I got to this point and then I realize of this?
Honestly, there is no point. It's the journey. I realized it's like you unlock layers within yourself, you know. That's like, oh, I realize just how deeper and deeper I need to go.
Yeah,
And
down to the rabbit
so I
hole.
don't know. I don't have a clear answer, because I think loving yourself just ends up, in the end, a way of being. And when you have a way of being, you will consistently learn about it. You consistently learn about yourself your entire life. But the one thing I've learned is that it takes, um, I've gotten lazy, and I share that in the book in a very poignant way, because I share, like, look, if you get lazy about it, eventually your mind, if something bad happens in life or whatever, your mind will just react back to old patterns. So you have to continually, consistently keep doing it. It's important. It's like your life depends on it. If you do it that way, you will see remarkable changes in your life. That's the most interesting part for me. Is I didn't expect it when I started it. I thought I was just working the inside. What I realized was I was working the outside of my life by working on the inside. And if
And
I worked on the inside of my life first, inside of myself first, the outside of my life would actually start to reflect that.
Kamal, you
That's
wrote,
been the most interesting insight.
it's fantastic because it, as you said, it's layer from to layer to layer, and then you go to your essence, your being, right? You wrote you wrote live your truth in 2013. Something really important.
Correct.
I think something really important in 2020, where almost everybody is running around with a purpose, feeling empty or ignoring their true self. Uh, what writing, publishing, and reading this book has taught you about living your truth, and how anyone can find this truth and live it up? I think it's
That's a good question. Honestly, I wrote that book. Um, it was more of like a philosophy on living your best self to the world. Be your best self. But it's more of let your best self be the expression to the world. That's what it was about. Um, and I write when I write these nonfiction books, I write it from various angles so that it really layers it in. I don't know if it's taught me anything. Look, I wrote that book a long time ago, and I've grown. I as a writer grow. I as a human being grow. And so what I write, what I write, what came out in 2020 is actually probably way more evolved, or because I've evolved as a human being. Um, so I don't know if writing it taught me anything. Writing, I'm a writer. That's why I exist on this planet. I have stories to tell. I want to leave behind books that change lives. Long after I'm gone, I want, if I've left that behind, that's, someone 100 years from now, 100 years from when I'm gone, finds one of my books and reads it and they're better for it, I did my job. It's what I was here
Amen.
for.
You seem like such an appropriate person to ask this question. What do you think? What do you think that for you and in your experience lies the hint towards fulfillment?
It's an interesting question. You ask good questions, man.
Thank you so much.
I think fulfillment is in the end, like I get most fulfillment when I'm doing what I feel is my own thing, my expression. When I'm creating. Everyone everyone has their thing. And even if they don't think they found it, they have it and they know those moments when they feel fulfilled. Um, I feel fulfilled when I'm creating something, when I'm creating something of value, something that I think will be of value to the world, something that's bigger than me. I feel fulfilled. I also feel fulfilled when I work on myself. Like, for example, I recently, I'm in San Francisco, and lately, because there was a lockdown, I was visiting family. So because of the coronavirus, and this is funny that this would make me feel fulfilled. But I'll tell you, like I like going to the gym. Exercising is very important to me, and they closed the gyms, and I couldn't work out. So I saw these and I got them from Amazon for like $50. These gymnastic rings, like like they have men's gymnastics in the Olympics. They have the rings,
Right?
the event. I've got these gymnastics rings. Got them, $50, and it's completely changed my life. I've discovered Olympic gymnastics and rings. They're so challenging. They're so incredibly challenging, and they're so much fun and play. It's like I've discovered exercise as play, that I don't want to go back to a gym because I hang them outside. I'm in the air getting fresh air and I'm getting a great workout, and I'm doing these things where I'm hanging upside down and doing these things and crazy. And there's a sense of fulfillment from there, because on rings, to be able to do certain things, you have to build your strength to do them. So
Mm.
like what I'm able to do now versus when I started a month ago is very, very different. I was doing some exercises last night that already felt easier than when I did them 2 days ago. And it's just such a great feeling, when you put yourself into something and you get better and you see that. So funny enough, I've been getting a lot of fulfillment from doing Olympic rings. So it can be anything. It's just our expression, what lights us up.
Great answer. Thank you. Really inspiring. What's you've been looks clear, and it seems clear that writing is your craft, and above among any others for sure. So what's the biggest lessons you you've learned, or biggest lessons, or something that really impact you as a writer? What would you say?
Um, I think the biggest lesson is you really have to care to do your best work before you put it out. Doesn't not that's different than falling in the trap of people who keep on working on something and never put it out because they're not satisfied with it. You also need another biggest lesson is every writer needs a deadline. Otherwise you'll always keep on working on the same book or same project or different project, never put something out. Biggest lesson in creativity is you need a deadline, so that you have to do your best, and then but whatever your best is by then it goes out. That's really helped. And the second is, like, I tell people, your first draft is not your first draft. Like Hemingway said, Hemingway said first draft is excrement. It's just you putting stuff on the page. Then you have to work on it. You have to hammer and chisel. That's maybe your eighth draft, your ninth draft. But the book that people see is the 10th draft. You have to really care and really work and take your ego out and work, and then just do it with respect for the story, with respect for the reader, what works for them. And that only comes from doing it again and again and again and again until you've polished it, until you've done your very, very best. So, that's those are the two things. One is you have to, and that comes from learning the craft. Talent won't get you to that, craft will. That's where craft comes in. And so that's it, deadlines and the craft. working on the craft so you can actually get out the very best work. And like, if you're putting something out of the world that you care about, that deserves it. It deserves you having given it your best. And your best will change over time. My writing has evolved over time, and it will continue to. So it's interesting, to see that evolution, but that's growth, because there you will never. I don't think one will ever achieve mastery in a craft, which is great. You're always growing and learning. Could be 90. I could be
Right.
90, right, and still working to be a better writer. That's beautiful. It gives you something to aspire towards to get better and better. That's what life is about. You aspire, you get better and better.
And how about you also entrepreneur and a businessman? What's
Hmm.
what's the what's the biggest lessons you extract from the life you lived in the more entrepreneurial side?
Yeah, I'll tell you. What I do now is I run a venture capital firm. So I built it on my own, and I invest in startups. I invest in founders, tech founders, when they're first starting a company, and it's I love it. It's because I've built companies, I understand better what they're doing, and I can help them. And I actually wrote a letter to my investors in my fund in the beginning of this year, sharing with them some lessons. And the biggest lesson I learned in investing was, um, it's not in the best returns I've gotten so far. It's not when I invest in the business, not when I invest in the market, not when I invest in Botango, but when I invested in the person. When I found someone and who's doing something I thought I want to back this person. Those have turned out to be some of my very best investments. So it's funny. It's investment, at least in early stage startups, where someone with an idea, maybe a small product or whatever, you're investing in that human being.
Hmm.
And so it's people, and I like that. It's like I get to invest in people. I'm not looking at it as a business. I'm looking at that. Do I want to invest in this person? And look, there's a lot of good people out there. So it's not like you just find good people and give them checks, because you will lose your money. It's like
And your mind too, yeah.
in yeah, in the box of entrepreneurs building companies, then like there's many good people, there's many well qualified, there's lots of great projects happening. How do you choose? You find the ones you want to back, and it's by finding the people. You say, like, the best ones I find, like, wow, where you think this guy was born, or this woman was born to build this. You get that feeling, you write them a check.
Yeah. You were saying something, and it looks like it's connected with through all the thread of what you're saying, how you act. And I saw, like, in an interview, like, or in a piece of, I think in a post maybe, like, they say, like, follow your heart, right? And your intuition. So how can from your own experience can we follow? Because you say that it's easy to say follow your heart, but how?
What does that mean?
Yeah. What's that mean?
Really, what does that mean? It's very easy to say these things. I don't think I've said that's
Like,
written that,
uh,
because I like practical, you
yeah,
know.
or something. I just or maybe I took from the.
Oh, I know where you got it from, because the novel Rena said, underneath it says on Libro de it says like in English, it says rebirth, fable about love, forgiveness, and
Yes,
following your
I
heart.
follow your heart. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for,
That
for
was the
reminding me.
subtitle we came up with the publisher, to give people an idea. Basically, came from a marketing background. It's like, you don't just give them a title, but you let them know what is the promise in the book,
Exactly.
right? And but that was more subtle. It was about following your heart. Was like following your heart and walking the Camino De Santiago, even though it didn't make any sense. There was no one. Why walk this? Why walk a 11th century pilgrimage in the modern day? Makes no sense. Like there's so much choices to do, but to do that, is like, but when your heart calls to it. And when I say heart, it's like your inner. We know when we feel called to something. There's no way to guide someone to that. You just, and usually you're also scared by it. which is a sign. One has to look at fear in the face and realize, is this real, or is this like just a more of a signal that I should do this? That comes with just experience, of facing fear. Facing our inner fear doesn't mean that we have to go jump out of planes or something, but facing our inner fears and looking at them rather than just turning away, which is what we naturally do.
By the way, about the facing our fears, I was talking, I think it's colleague of yours, very good friend of yours, Brandon Webb, about that exactly, how to face your fears.
Yeah. That guy knows.
Yeah, really knows. Like, it's like guy on execution. So what's been your toughest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Unfortunately, I've had a bunch of challenges, man. Like, I don't know what my toughest challenge is. I would say the toughest challenge I went through was recently in October. I almost died really badly, and I had this emergency surgery to save my life, and I spent
Wow.
5 months in really bad pain, recovering. It's only been a month since I've come out of the pain, and it was really, really bad. Like it was severe trauma. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and it was really hard. I'm still processing it. I don't know what I learned from it, honestly. It's just, sometimes you just get up every day, you put one foot in front of the other, one foot the other until it becomes easy again. Sometimes it just comes down to that. So I don't have a lesson from it yet. I basically being that close to dying, I basically, I bled to death, and because of something that went wrong with the surgery when I was recovering. Um, Early on, you walk around, you start to feel like grateful for life and blessed, but that goes away. Your mind, it clouds it again. So I think it's a more matter of, I mean, you asked what's the hardest challenge? That might have been my hardest challenge. And I don't have the lessons from that. Maybe the lesson is just every day you get up and you try to work on yourself and even when it's just terrible, even when it's just the pain overwhelms you, you just get up and you do it and get up, because one day the work that you did pays off. It was like a month ago that all of a sudden I felt like I was alive again. And that feeling of aliveness feels good, but it's even more alive than I've felt before. So I
Wow.
think the work of every day getting up and doing it paid off when the pain went away. That all that work that I couldn't see underneath, that was dulled by the pain, but I was doing to just face the pain. Now is a sense of aliveness that I it's very interesting. I'm figuring out. It's like it's this aliveness that I haven't felt before.
And this opens for me a question. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
you were so close to death. What was your mind, or what was your perspective then, and what is your perspective now from death?
Well, what I went through was severe trauma, where literally I was dying horribly. It wasn't like a gentle,
Oof.
taking its time. So where you die in half a minute, you know, if
Yeah.
they don't get to you within a minute or half a minute, you're dead, and you're already in so much pain. Your mind doesn't start. Your mind doesn't think anymore. It just goes into images and emotions, and because it's not you don't experience that in life. Your mind's not used to blood spurting out of your body like a fountain. It goes into shock, and then eventually you have to surrender to it. That's why I remember thinking first, just being horrified that this is how I was going, and then I had no choice. If this was it, this was it. You know, and I had to let go, and I had to surrender into that darkness. I actually remember falling back into the darkness.
So powerful, man.
You
Wow.
have to surrender to that.
Respect,
You
Kamal.
know, I mean, look, thank you, but I think it's something that it's a very human thing. When we
It
go,
is.
we
It
have
is.
to. It is the ultimate surrender. You know,
Hmm. I lost
and we
my
all.
I lost my brother when
Okay.
he was 21, and like,
Oh man, I'm sorry.
and yeah, you see that, and then it's, suddenly it's all gone, right? It's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, just turning around, we towards the end. What's the craziest on a funny side thing you've ever done?
Oh my God, I've done a lot of stupid things, like climbing the Himalaya without any gears. I've done stupid
That's a good one.
drugs.
Eh? That's a good one.
I've done stupid drugs because I was curious what it was like. Crazy funniest thing. God, I don't know, man. It's like the funniest thing I think is found in moments in life, but not when you look at the funniest thing. Like there are moments in the army I think about, which is some of the funniest things where it just where because humor is just a release of tension. Often that's what comedians do. They build up tension and then they release it and you laugh. That's the whole trick to writing a joke. Um, I don't know, man. I think I've done a lot of crazy things, and I hope to do crazier things in the future. But I hope to do them, in a smarter way. And I think one of the craziest things I ever did was putting my writing out to the world because I was writing about from the heart. I was writing about discovering yourself and being better. Yet I was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, where this was a time no one talked about those things, and I thought I was going to be a laughing stock, and I thought that no one would give me money for my company. And instead, within a month or two, I was having CEOs at parties coming telling me, "Hey, your book really helped me," or "Hey, your book changed my life." You know, it's very interesting when we face our fears for our creative efforts. To anyone who's listening, first, thank you. Second, I would say, like, look, if you have any creative pursuits or anything you want to put out in the world, and it doesn't have to be art, you can be a carpenter, you can be anything that's your expression. The key is, do your work, do your best, and put it out to the world. That's where the magic happens, is when you put it out. That's when you start and then continue because you don't know the response you're going to get. It's the responses come and go, like, um, but the magic is in putting it out, giving it to the world. That's your gift. And the world gives you back. The world's beautiful. Look, here we are talking about, I have now a place to stay in Valencia because of my books. I have
Yeah,
paella waiting for me, right?
for
I
sure,
mean, what
man.
did I do? Right? It just comes to you.
It comes to you, and then it's a sign, and then you come there, you come here, and then something else start happening, right?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you for that question, and just jump into the rapid fire questions and go to the end of the interview. So the rapid fire questions. First one is, what's the book you've recommended the most?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I've I've given so many copies away over the years. I met him years ago. He was a good man. He was a good writer. I met him in Washington D.C. I had no money, and I drove to D.C. because he was doing a book signing. I literally had no money. I think I just had enough money for gas in my car, but I wasn't sure.
I'm
But I
meeting
wanted to
also
meet
in
him.
a book signing too, Paulo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Manchester.
mean, how was it?
Like I asked for a tip for a can you what was the best you will share with me is
Uh-huh.
never write if it's not to take it out from your mind. It's good,
Interesting.
right?
Interesting. Okay, I'll remember that. Never write if it's not to take. What do you think that means?
So I think it means that just write from taking your ideas out of your mind. Don't write about anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. That's a good tip.
Mm.
Really good tip.
And what's the podcast you liked or you listen the most?
Um, Look, I love James Altucher's podcast. He's
Really good.
really smart. He's
Yes.
incredibly smart, and it's such a good man and a good heart. And he has such a unique way of thinking. He's one of the smartest human beings I've ever met in my life, and I've
Really?
met quite a few.
Wow.
He's scarily smart. And the level of guests that he brings, and then what he's able to bring out of them, and also what he shares, I would recommend James.
What was if you have to name one skill, what skill will you name?
I mean, that I wish I had, or that I have, or just a skill.
Freestyle.
What do you mean?
So choose. Feel free to choose if you wish to have or if you have.
Right now, I want to learn more gymnastics. I wish I'd like learn gymnastics as a kid. I wish I would have gotten obsessed. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Now like I look at these men's gymnastics and like, and I'm doing it, but to get to a certain point takes a lot of time. But it's a skill.
What's
That's one
your
I want to get better at.
What's your favorite habit or ritual?
Favorite habit or ritual? Honestly, it's exercising.
Mm.
It's the best meditation, but it's also something you do for your mind and your body, and it's the easiest one to see results from.
Do you have any favorite hack or like a really unique hack that helps you or empowers you or
Um, I think that 10 breaths is a good hack that I spoke about earlier.
yeah.
It really stops you wherever you are and just makes you present, but not just present, makes you it keeps on layering it the love for yourself.
Do you have a mantra or a motto?
Personal motto? No. I mean, like, look, I wrote a book about loving yourself and using
It's a
the
good
phrase "I
motto.
love myself." But I don't even know if that's not my motto. My motto, I think, my personal motto is just to be better.
Mm.
I want to be better than I was, and which is a never-ending journey. You know.
And if you were about to recommend me one of the next guests for interviewing, who would you recommend me?
For your audience, I think James would be great.
Thank
You
you.
know, yeah, I think James would be great to have. I don't think your audience has heard him, and they would love him.
Yeah,
Such
no,
a,
sure.
yeah, so unique, such a unique, smart thinker.
Kamal,
See,
is there anything else? Well, the last question is if you were about to launch a global campaign like targeted to 25, 50, 100 million people, and you were about to say one single message, what will be your message?
um, hmm, that's quite a question. I mean, look, I mean, my book says love yourself, so I think I would just say that. But saying that doesn't do anything, um, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I would say it, but I would then I'll give them I would give them my book and it's got the solution. You know, how to do it. Yeah, that's the thing, man. It's like, how do we put anything out if it's from the heart that makes it practical for others? Because if it's changed us, then we have to share with them how we did it so it can change them.
Kamal, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I am looking forward to my paella.
Mm. I know like the three best places in the whole world of paella, and it's in Valencia. One is rustic, the other one
Uh-huh.
is like really old fashioned, and the other one is modern.
Perfect.
So you get a
I
taste
want I
of the
want
three.
old fashioned. I
I
want
know
as old fashioned as we can get and good
it's the
Spanish
best.
wine.
I agree with
You
you.
know,
I agree with you.
yeah,
Kamal,
I love those places wherever I travel, just like the old places where it's just locals and like there's no tourists and it's been there forever and only you have to live there to know it. Those are my favorites.
the more local you can get, the more like
Sí,
feel like home. You right?
sí, es la verdad.
It's verdad. Where people can find you.
Twitter, Instagram, my full name. Um, that's usually where I hang out. I hang out more on Twitter, but they can look at my books and my all my books. I always put my email in there. So if you read my books and you want to ask me any questions about it or anything, you can always email me.
Kamal, thank you for your time, for your generosity, and also sharing with us like the love you feel for yourself and also for the world. I'm really honored for the interview.
Oh, the honor is mine, and it makes me smile to that I'm being interviewed for for audience in Spain. It's beautiful. You know, who would have thought when I was walking the Camino de Santiago that I would be doing this?
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I think it's more crazy that you will be having paella in Valencia and having a good time in summer, probably if it's go well. So yeah, we'll keep connected, and you let me know when you plan to come, and I will arrange everything.
I would love that. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Kamal, and the journey continues.
It does, man.
It does. So you've just listened, Kamal Ravikant, like loving yourself, love yourself like your life depends on it, because guess what? It depends on it. So love yourself and be disrupted. No. And disrupt, because if not, you will be disrupted.
Esto ha sido Disrupt Everything by Isra Garcia. Encuentra el riesgo antes de que el riesgo te encuentre a ti.